Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Career Spotlight on Careers in Social Work and Counseling. My name is Lisa Kuntz-Stamanuk. I am the Chinook School Division Industry Education Program Facilitator. On behalf of the Regina Industry Education Council, we are pleased to be able to have Carrie Chambers here with us today to share her experiences with us. For those of you who have a passion in helping people and are interested in working in a variety of settings with people of all ages, doing a variety of kinds of work, a career in social work or counseling will sure to be one that intrigues you. Before we begin our spotlight today, I would like to remind students to take a moment following the presentation to complete the brief student survey and be entered into a draw for $50. Your feedback is important to us in helping us to arrange future spotlights. We will also have some time at the end of the presentation today for you to ask any questions, or you may contact Carrie directly. Thank you. For those of you just joining us, we are pleased to have Carrie Chambers with us here today. Carrie lives in Swift Current, Saskatchewan. She completed her Child and Youth Care Diploma in 2003 from Medicine Hat College, and then her Bachelor of Social Work in 2010 from the University of Regina. Since then, Carrie has worked in a few different positions. She was employed with the Chinook School Division for 17 years in both the high school and middle school settings. After her time with Chinook, Carrie became the Rapid Access Counselor at Fresh Start, where she was able to work with individuals and families of all ages and support them as needed. Carrie has recently committed to working full-time in a practice setting with Brunswick Creek Psychology Services in Swift Current, where she will continue with her private practice in counseling. Please join me in welcoming Carrie here with us today. Take it away, Carrie.
Thank you, Lisa. So first of all, I just want to thank Lisa for the opportunity to speak about social work. Obviously, it is something that I'm passionate about because I've been doing it for a while now. So we will just kind of get going. So as Lisa mentioned, my name is Carrie Chambers. I have a BSW in social work, and I am registered with the Saskatchewan Association of Social Workers. And I am doing some private practice through Brunswick Creek Psychology Services. So what is social work? So just a little brief description. So social work is a degree in the helping profession. People who become social workers can work in a wide variety of positions. And most of these positions are working with people and supporting them to be their best self and to live their best lives. Education. So what you need from your high school, or what education kind of you need if your plan is to do the same and to go into a Bachelor of Social Work. So when you are doing your class schedules for your grade 10, 11, 12 years, one of the things that you need to be making sure of, I guess, in your final year, your grade 12 year, is that you have a couple of your Englishes. So you need your A30 and your B30 level of English. You need one approved 30 level math or science, one approved 30 level language, social science, or fine arts, and then one additional approved 30 level course. So that is usually, those are pretty common things that you would need in order to apply to most university level classes. But it is important that you check if that's something that you're passionate about, or whatever it is that you're wanting to get into, that you know what courses from the high school level that you would need. So upon your entry into the university, when you are going into the Bachelor of Social Work program, they don't actually allow you to just apply in on your first year. If you are applying for your BSW, you need to complete 1 year of pre-social work courses. And that's usually about a 30 credit hour program. So you will take entry level 100 level classes. There's the psychologies, sociologies, and then some 100 level social work classes. Once you've completed those classes, then you can apply into the bachelor program. And once in the program, then you will do, again, more of the theoretical practice, but you also get to start doing some practical training. You will be able to do that. It's usually your third and fourth years that you would be able to do those practical placements. And then if you continue on to do your master's, you would also, at the graduate level, there's some theoretical and practical training that happens at those levels as well. So education for me, I graduated, I guess, from Pontex High School and decided that I was going to go into social work, but I was 17 when I graduated. So I kind of wanted to go into social work, but I wasn't quite sure. So I did some pre-social work or some classes, I guess just university arts and science classes. I went to Medicine Hat College and I did that for 2 years, and then decided that I wasn't sure, if finishing my degree at 21 was going to be what I wanted to do. So I took a year off and worked for a year at my parents' business, and then decided, nope, that's not what I want to do for a living either. So I went back to school, but I actually applied in and got into the child and youth care program in Medicine Hat College. So I went back and I did that program for 2 years. And so once I had obtained that diploma, I came back to Swift Current, and I started working in the school division, first of all as an EA and then as a youth worker. And while I was doing my youth worker position in the division, I actually applied into the Bachelor of Social Work program and got in at the University of Regina, and was able to do my entire degree right here from Swift Current while working my job through the Great Plains College. It was amazing. It was great for me in the sense of I was working full-time, but wanted to continue my education. So all of my courses were distance, and I was able to, work them around my schedule. I was able to only drive to Regina for one course in my entire degree program, which was really great. I did have to take some classes from other universities, but they were very flexible and very supportive in helping me to be able to obtain my goals of becoming a social worker while still needing to be employed and be able to financially pay for it. So that was the road I took. So I worked and got my degree. So it took me a little bit longer, but in 2010 was when I had convocated from my Bachelor of Social Work to become a social worker. So the duties. What does a social worker do? In general, as described in the Faculty of Social Work, the University of Regina, social workers help to identify the needs of the disadvantaged, the marginalized, and oppressed, and empower individuals and their families and communities to support them in reaching and achieving their full potential. So as a social worker, we have a code of ethics that we follow, and it contains six values that we work through. So respect for inherent dignity and worth of persons, the pursuit of social justice, service to humanity, integrity of professional practice, confidentiality in professional practice, and competence in professional practice. There's also some guidelines of ethical practices, which all social workers in Canada follow, but these are kind of those general idea of what it is that we do in this work, right? We are looking out for others, we are advocating for others, we are supporting others for their full potential. But when we're talking about specific duties as a social worker and what is it that you can do, so, if I'm thinking that I want to get into the social work field and I want to, where do I work? What does that look like? So social work and social services, there's multiple layers, I guess, of social work in the sense of there's different fields that you can work in. So in social work, in social services, roles can include things like investigating family violence, child abuse and neglect, recruiting foster parents or placement of children in protective care, and working with adoption. Social work in schools. These roles may include helping students adjust to new school environments, anxiety, anger or aggression or aggressive behaviors, potentially some, bullying or friendship stuff, trying to work with kids to kind of feel safe and comfortable at schools. And then attendance issues is also one that they help. Any issues that are affecting a student or their performance in, being their best student self, social workers usually are a part of a team that help them. Social work in healthcare. So supporting transitions for clients in hospital, home care or long-term care facilities. So usually in these settings, social workers are part of a treatment team supporting individuals. So they work with a group of people trying to find the best situations or the best spots or the best care or the best opportunities for those needing that care. In community health, roles may include working with children and their families. It may include working with adults on their own. It may include doing some adult or children's group work. So usually working with couples could be, but they assess and provide support for the specific needs. So you may see community programs running for different types of groups, let's say ADHD, or, parents of an ADHD child. I know those are some that are common that run multiple times throughout the year through our mental health programs here in town. Dealing with difficult children, like there's lots there. They try to support people individually, but they also try to provide groups for those, more common kind of things that people would be dealing with. And then in private practice, it's a fee for service. So again, you can be working with children, families, individuals, adults, couples, the whole gamut of individuals, potential group work, presentations, workshops, those sorts of things. So if working with people specifically, though, is not really something that you're like, no, I'm not a one-on-one or a people kind of person, but the idea behind serving others or helping others is something that sounds intriguing or interesting to me. In social work, you can also work in policy. You can work in policy analysis, policy development. You can be, behind the scenes and kind of in those management roles where you're supporting people who are doing that kind of ground floor work and helping those people. So there are tons of opportunity in the sense of, what the duties are and what, things that you can do in social work. So currently in my position, so for the position of private practice, I assess the client's needs. I create and implement a treatment plan with the client. So, it's always client-centered and what is best for them and what serves them. I can refer out to any resources if it's needed to help them to kind of figure out in our community, what supports are there or in and around our community. It's not just our community, but surrounding area. And then continue to evaluate and monitor the growth and improvement during each session. So kind of just being mindful of, I often say to people when I'm working with people, the big work happens when they're not with me. So when they come back and we meet again, we talk about, how that went while they were gone. So the growth and improvements that had happened between each session, as well as what's going on during the sessions. And then advocating on behalf of clients. So I often, you'll find in the helping profession that we want to make sure that people know what's out there for them and, know how to access those supports. So sometimes it could be a matter of just connecting people to the right supports for them. So yeah. My workspace. So workspaces for social workers are generally an office or a setting that is, provides a comfortable, safe space where someone can feel that they are in a supportive environment. So you can see that there's an office desk, where I can do all of my paperwork. I also provide services over Zoom, much like, we're doing today, and then also can be over the phone. So, having that office space, that you have that quiet space where you can do those opportunities. And so needing that desk space to be able to look at your computer and kind of do those things. But also you can see in the second picture that there's a couple chairs and a soft couch. Again, providing space and comfortable space where people can feel that they can come in, they can sit down, they can relax, and share their story. So you're always wanting an inviting environment. So, I have some plants and some soft lamps and things like that in the space just to provide that feeling of comfort and warmth. We're always looking for that, that when people are coming into, a counseling office, it's not necessarily that they're coming in all happy and joyful. And, so they're having some of that uplifting stuff is really important. The equipment that is needed, social work is interesting. I mean, it's not necessarily that there is equipment that is needed in the sense of like, doing hard labor or work like that. However, I, as you can see, some of the pictures, so we'll start with the ones on your screen on the right. I am somebody who I talk with my hands. I'm sure you've noticed that as I've been talking, but some people need that something to do while they're, nervous or meeting someone for the first time or just even in conversation multiple times. So I have fidgets that sit in my space all the time, and people are welcome to access them and grab whatever feels right and comfortable for them. It just is a calming piece for people to be able to feel that, they have something. If you can busy your hands, it almost helps with, conversation. So that is kind of the idea of having those kinds of things laying around in the space. And then the other one is different activities or games or things like that, that I have just there for, icebreakers. Working with kids, I often find, sometimes if we are working for a little bit and then you can just kind of tell that, they're kind of, that the whole sitting and talking or, talk conversation is just not for them. So then we play a game, and while they're playing that game, you learn so much about who they are, their character. And then they open up more, just like in talking about like, it just provides them that space of or feeling of calm. I also have markers and whiteboards and coloring books. Sometimes just, again, that activity while you're having conversation is really helpful. There's some dice in there that are starter conversations. I mean, not every client will come into your space being like, oh, here, I just want to tell you everything. It takes a little bit to warm up and start conversations. So they're conversation starters. And then other equipment that I don't have in, the pictures per se is, if we're working on anxiety, there might be some workbook anxiety information that we work through, or depression, eating disorders. There's a whole gamut of different, areas of focus that we could be talking about. But then I have some resources that I can provide, some workbook type activities where, they can work through something, or it'll give them something to be able to kind of work themselves through, in the sense of taking steps to be able to move forward in whatever it is that they're dealing with. So it's not necessarily equipment that would be used for everyone all the time, but resources, one-pagers for people sometimes are really helpful when they're going through something, and just having that thing to look back if it's, unhelpful thinking or unhelpful thoughts, and learning how to challenge those behaviors, just having something to take with them to remind them of, oh yeah, that's what our session was about. So those are the kinds of equipment pieces that we would provide in social work. So benefits. I obviously, this is the part that I really like. So you can focus on practicing things that you like to work on. So in social work, although I would say I am a general practitioner, so I will meet with people, who are dealing with grief or anxiety or depression or relationship things, like multiple areas. You can be more specific. There are specific theories of practice that you can focus on. There are specific, there are different types of practices that people will specialize in, and then that will be the only people that they see, or people that, are dealing with a certain situation, or potentially they will do a certain type of counseling, and then any situations that deal with that, like we talk about, there's ACT, or I'm drawing a blank on the name right now, sorry, so I won't even say, but there's different types of specific theories that you could be working through with people. And so once you're specialized in that, right, you can go out and branch out and be a specialist in that area. There's always something new in this role. It's never boring. So you might think that you have heard it all, seen it all, been through and like almost any kind of idea you could think of with people, and someone else comes through the door with their story. And although that story might be similar to something, it's completely different because of who it is and that person coming in. So it's always moving, always changing, always new. Potential to have flexible hours dependent on where you're working. So dependent on where you are in your career or what it is you choose to do, those hours potentially can be flexible for you. Lots of avenues to pursue if you are in a position that you are no longer feeling fits your lifestyle and needs. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as we move through. But if you are feeling, well, for me, for example, when I started out, I was in the school division and I loved being in the school division. Great hours, right? You worked the same kind of days. I personally don't have children, so having holidays when the kids had holidays it would be great for someone who has kids, right? So having that opportunity is fabulous. For healthcare, right? Same idea, your position, you're working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Some of those positions have field hours where, the flexibility of taking some time off during your week because you maybe potentially worked an evening or a weekend or ran some of those groups. So yeah, lots of positions.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so that's kind of the benefits. And then looking at the rewards, social work, like most careers in the human services field, are rewarding in so many ways, but often those aren't ways in which we, like, others can even understand or see. Because it's not a field where you can go out and be like, oh, do you know what I did today? I, did this, this, and this. But the feeling that you get or the feeling that I get, I guess this is my personal feeling of rewards, is when I see someone break through a difficult time or work through their anxiety or depression, and the happiness on their face is that reward. Like, just watching their happiness and their growth and their potential that they, never dreamed they could potentially or possibly ever get to. And when they reach that or surpass that, knowing you've been able to help someone do that, that's the reward. That warm, fuzzy feeling that I helped that person to be able to be their best self. Sometimes, people do, they say thank you. And, I've had, because I worked with kids and because I worked in the school systems, I had families that would, potentially say thank you all the time. But even years later, once those kids have become adults themselves, when they come up and, see you at the grocery store and, kind of catch you off guard, and it's like, hey, I remember you from school, and, tell you how you affected their life in such a positive way. It's unexplainable, kind of the feeling that you get. It's just, that's the rewarding part about being a social worker. That's the rewarding part about being a human being that, gets to support and help other human beings to be their best selves. It's such a, I don't know, I can't even, heartwarming. Heartwarming is the feeling I always say, it's heartwarming. The warm fuzzies, that good feeling of like being a positive influence in the world, because, I might be one person, but I know that I have helped affect a lot of other people in a positive way. And that is the rewarding part. That's the part for me that's like, that's the feel good. That's what gets me up every day to continue doing my job. Now, the flip side of that, and much like there is in any kind of job that we're doing, is that there's challenges and stressors to social work. Part of it is that you sometimes can see the change that somebody can make, and you can see the potential of where that could take them, but they're not there, and they're not ready to do that yet. And they're not ready to commit to the work that it's going to take for them to get to that spot. So it's sometimes hard when it's like, I have to let that go, or I have to let them kind of get there on their own. So you can't want it more than your clients. You're not going to be able to help everyone. Our personalities aren't for everyone. So sometimes you're going to meet someone who doesn't want to work with you, and that's okay. I often say 80% of counseling is based on the relationship between the counselor and the person who is in the counseling session. And if that connection isn't there, that person isn't getting what they need to the best of what they could have. So that's not a personal thing. In fact, it's more helpful for them and more professional for you as a social worker to be like, you know what, you could do better if you were working with someone else. So it's okay to know that you're not going to be the person for everyone. Burnout. There is a high rate of burnout in the helping profession because you're constantly taking on other people's emotions. You're trying to help them through some difficult things. You hear some stories and some life, situations from people that are very intense. And if you are constantly looking after them and you're, not necessarily looking after yourself, you're not necessarily, sleeping well or, physically exercising or eating healthy, burnout is something that is very common. And vicarious trauma, that's kind of the part of the burnout. When you're hearing some of this heavy stuff, and if you're not taking care of you and you're not making sure that you're looking after you, it starts to take a toll on your body physically and mentally. And then the part about, that I'm just learning now being in private practice is that if you don't see a client, you don't get paid. So there's a little bit of stress in that, or challenges in that. So you have to be mindful when you're setting up your practice about like how that's all going to work into your life as well. So yeah, so as much as there are tons of like really positive rewards, there's always some challenges and stressors that are involved in anything that we do. Salary and benefits. In social work, that's very dependent on the type of social work you choose to do. So in Saskatchewan, you can start out anywhere around that like $30 an hour, and you can go as high up to or over $100 an hour. Again, just depending on where you are. Most organizations, so health, social services, school systems, they have benefits and pensions for their employees. Even, community-based organizations, any kind of organization that has multiple employees often has benefits and pensions. Again, depending on which one you're in, will be kind of the factor or the dependent on how much that benefits or pension package is, but they are there. Holidays, again, dependent on the organizations. Most social workers wouldn't work stat holidays, and then would be in a position where they would get, the 3 weeks holidays or whatever it is. In the school system, I know that the social workers work the same days as teachers. So you are working the 197 days a year. So you get those same holidays, the school breaks that everyone else gets. And then hours, again, dependent on the position you're in, but most social work positions across the board would be that 7.5 to 8 hour days. Some of them might require field hours. And when they talk about field hours, what they mean is those are outside that like Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. So it could be that you're running a group in an evening, or it could be that, you're doing weekend, seminars or something. And so then they offer you some either to bank that time or to use that time and take it off later, or to be paid that bank time or be flexible in the sense that maybe you get some time off in that Monday to Friday because then you're working that weekend. So those hours are all kind of dependent again on where you are and what position it is or role it is that you're in the social work field. Supports and professional development. So when you get your social work degree, you get connected with in Saskatchewan, you get connected with the Saskatchewan Association of Social Workers, where you can register as a social worker. You do not need to register as a social worker for all positions as social workers, but in health you do, and in certain certain titles. If you want to do private practice, you need to have your license or be registered. In health, you need to be registered. And then there's some community-based organizations that they require you to be registered. But if you don't register with the SASW, you don't belong to the licensing body. And that licensing body gives you access to their resources and their supports, and they provide you a community or colleagues that you can, connect with and lean on, and people that are doing the same work as you. So, when we talked a little bit earlier about some of those stressors and challenges, when you're thinking, that burnout or vicarious trauma, you can be connected and surrounded by other people who are doing the same things that potentially could give you that, idea or opportunity of, hey, here's what I do for self-care, or here's how I look after myself, to just help in that sense of you being like, oh, okay, so you have this community support. As a registered social worker, the side to that too is that you pay an annual due to the Saskatchewan Association of Social Workers, and then you commit to doing 40 hours of professional development a year. And I think that that's kind of important too, because you can get your degree and then just cruise on through your career, but social work is ever changing, and you're always learning, and there's always new information and evidence coming out about, how to work with people who are dealing with certain things. And so it's really important to keep yourself kind of in the know. So, being a part of the association, it commits you to doing that. It commits you to finding some good professional development that helps you to grow yourself and your practice and what you can do to provide for others. So in order to be a part of that registered SASW association, you need to provide and maintain, to maintain your license, you need to provide them with that 40 hours of professional services. So Opportunities in the field. I think, yes. So social work provides so many different opportunities for individuals. I mentioned them kind of bullet formed at a lot earlier, but mental health has become more of a focus in our society now, more than ever. It's more openly spoken about. It's more openly put out there. It's more openly aware. Businesses who are supporting their employees and making sure that they're getting the supports that they need. We have seen huge growth in that area, which again, warms my heart. There are often positions left vacant though, because of this for months in the social work profession. And that's due to, we as a province have a lot of rural areas. So there are some rural positions that get left open because of, trying to get there or travel or moving to a smaller town. And then just the busyness of it. I talked about it earlier too, that burnout. So people are in a position, but it just becomes too much and they can't be there anymore. So there are opportunities for advancement. Those are often in those larger organizations. So like healthcare, you can move around in positions in healthcare. Once you have a permanent position, you can apply to other positions. You can move up. So you could become, get into management. You can get into out of scope positions. Again, dependent on what it is your ideas of, where you want to be are. School settings, usually a social worker stays as a school counselor. There's not a lot of movement in that one, potentially moving from maybe different school areas of work, but you would all kind of be on that same level. And then there's always opportunity to further your education. So getting your master's in social work, getting your PhD, whatever it is that you want to do, that can also open up the door for multiple opportunities for growing yourself and your practice or what it is that you want to do in social work. More specifically, opportunities in the types of jobs. We talked a little bit about the social services one. So you could do investigation or working with child and family services and social services, investigation of family violence, child abuse and neglect, supporting foster care, working with adoption. If we go to community health, working with children and their families, working in child and youth, working in addiction services, working in adult services. So that's working with individuals, couples, and families. Healthcare, again, could be working in palliative care, home care, long-term, could be working in the psychiatric unit as the social worker in care there, working in clinical settings. So we now in our area have social workers in our doctor's offices here in Swift Current, and that has been kind of added in and new in the last year, which has been a great support. So those social workers kind of are that first stop after a doctor's office. So if your doctor recognizes potentially there's some mental health supports needed, then they sign them up right away with that social worker in their office, and then they work with them to kind of figure out what their needs are and, provide resources and support for them there. So yeah, so there's mental health, doctor's offices, rapid access clinics. That's another one that's just kind of new in the last few years. So that was what I had done for the last 2.5 years. Rapid access clinics, there are 23 of them across the province right now. And they are that, rapid access. They're that quick response, or you can go online to their program and you can access services basically that day. It might be over the phone or over video, but you still could see someone potentially that very day. And if in person was what you preferred, it might be within 2 or 3 days. So the programming around that has been amazing. So that's exciting that that's a new one. And then community-based organizations. There are tons and tons and tons of opportunities for people to work in community-based organizations, whether that be those rapid access clinics, whether that be, I know in the bigger centers like Regina and Saskatoon, they have outreach programs, they have family service programs, tons of programs for people. And then private practice, is another one that is a field that if that's something that you're just want to be your own boss, the ability to do that is out there as well. So my journey in social work, I kind of told you a little bit about this, but as I told you kind of how I got to being a counselor, but I started out for a very short time in the child and youth mental health through community health here in the city. I did a practicum placement with them, and then I took on a position for a short time. And then the teen wellness coordinator position opened up at the high school here in Swift Current. So the Swift Current Comprehensive High School. That position was a dream position. So I was working with teens and on their wellness. So struggling with mental health, struggling with family situations, so helping them to, be able to attend school, be at school, and support them. Maybe it was potentially if they needed help finding a place to live, or, figuring out jobs because they needed to work while they were attending school, whatever it was. So that was an amazing job, but budget cuts made it so that we had to make some changes in our counseling throughout our division. So then I went from being the teen wellness coordinator at the high school, and then I did some, I think it was about 4 years in the middle year school. So I went from teenagers to pre-K to grade 8, which was a huge transition at first, but I loved it. Once I got in there. And again, I worked at that point with 4 middle year schools, having the opportunity to support kids. I helped with their, grade 5 health classes, the friendship stuff and puberty stuff and talking about all those kinds of things. So, the job opportunities or the opportunities within those jobs are endless in whatever it is that you want to do. If you put yourself out there and, I was somebody who wanted to support those opportunities for kids, and the teachers in the school division, helped me to be able to do that. And it was amazing. So working with littles, working with their families, working with parents, working alongside the teachers, you become really a part of that team. So that school piece was really fun. It was great. And then I moved on to be the rapid access counselor. So it was a program that was opening up in the community, and I was drawn to it to be able to work with people of all ages. So in the rapid access counselor position, I worked with people from as young as 5 to, I think one of my oldest clients was 87. So having that opportunity to work with people through all different walks of life and through all different areas of life really helped me grow as a counselor, but it also opened my eyes to all of the opportunities that are out there to support people, and knowing how, it's just, again, that go back to the rewards, that how heartwarming it is to know that you can help many people along their life's journey. And by just being an ear or being a sounding board or being a support, to watch them be able to get back to that full potential for them was amazing. And that brings me to where I am now, which is private practice. I have moved on to doing some private practice. It fits into my world and my life. I am very involved in our community outside of my work, my social work. So just providing me the flexibility to be able to continue to do those things. But again, I still get to meet with people and support them and help them to be their best selves. So my journey has been, I think I have been very blessed and rewarded in so many ways in the opportunities that I've had to be able to move through, in this career. And I just think if social work is where you're thinking you want to be, just even my own story, I've had so many great opportunities throughout my practice. So there's so much opportunity out there. So work-life balance. That's one that I think everybody has to focus on a little bit. The hours in social work are usually Monday to Friday. Some positions have field hours. The shifts, again, dependent on your employment, but most often those would be Monday to Friday as well. And then time off, holidays and weekends, stat holidays, those kinds of things. Dependent on your employer would be that holiday. So I kind of mentioned that earlier. If you get that 3 weeks off, if you are, in the school system and you get the holidays off of, the same that the school system has, overtime, that is dependent on your contract and the employment that you are with. Self-care, huge bold letters, exclamation mark. I talked about this earlier in the challenges, and it is very important when you're working in the helping profession. We spend so much time focusing on others and making sure that they're healthy and that they're getting the supports that they need and that they're taking care of themselves. But we really need to do that reflective work and look at where we are at. Personally, I'm somebody, I love to go for walks with my girlfriends. I exercise when I can, journaling, crafting, seeking out my own counseling, or, being a counselor, we all recognize how helpful it is. So doing it ourselves as well, finding someone that we can make sure we're doing our check-ins and making sure that we're okay is really important. So yeah, so I guess that kind of wraps it up. I again just want to thank Lisa and the rest of the committee, and I appreciate being able to highlight the social work profession. And I hope that someday some of you potentially will be my colleagues. And yeah, look forward to seeing you in the field. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Carrie. I have a couple of questions for you. I really appreciate that you were able to share your journey with us today. It was a session that many students had asked about because they're really unsure about what a career in social work would look like. So my first question for you is, you have a Bachelor of Social Work. What other education might people pursue if they were interested in counseling? Because it's not just through a Bachelor of Social Work.
Absolutely. There are multiple, options for people. So you can do a psychology degree. Usually with your psychology degree, you do need to do your master's in order to do some of the counseling part of that. There's also counseling as you can, I think it's through the University of Athabasca, but they actually have just a counseling degree. So it's not necessarily social work or psychology, but it's counseling. And often if you, potentially have your bachelor's in education already or a bachelor's in something else, you can do a 2-year diploma program, or not diploma, 2-year kind of certificate program that would put you into like the Canadian Counseling Association. And then there are also religious schools that would offer like counseling through their practices. So there are many opportunities for counseling out there.
Oh, good. Good to hear. So in high school, if a student was thinking, I like to help others and I might consider social work or counseling, what could they do to see if it's something they're interested in?
Again, here's what I did, and I know that it's still available because I just presented to them this summer. And I know it's happening in Pontiac, so good job. But I think it is throughout other schools too. But we had what was called a peer support group. And so you could sign up to be a part of the peer support group, and you actually worked with the counselor from the school. And then you learned some of the technique, like you went on a retreat and you met, I want to say weekly or bi-weekly, and you learned how to be a support to other people, and you practiced, and you did some, kind of practice counseling with the other people that were in the group. And then you would sign up to be available, maybe it was your week and you would be around. And so if a student needed some support, the teachers were kind of aware of that and they knew that you were a part of that and would set you up to be able to talk with them if that was something that they wanted. So that, and volunteering, volunteering in your community, volunteering at an old folks home, volunteering at the hospital, volunteering with kids opportunities, like any of those things that are helping others. So, it could be your community puts on a play day or something for the kids. And it's like, I want to be a part of it, just to be around them, to see like, hey, do I like hanging out with kids? Like, is this, something I feel comfortable with? Same thing with adults, right? Having that opportunity to go and spend some time, in an old folks home. Give yourself those opportunities to be around people and to see if that's, fills your bucket.
I know that often we see a lot of women in this, in the field of social work, or not so much counseling. There's men counselors, but in the field of social work in particular, there's often a lot of women in that field. How can you speak to men in the field of counseling and social work?
I can. I know that when I did my degree, there were, I think it was 4. I can see 2 for sure, but I'm pretty sure there was 4 when we started, men that did their social work degree with us. 2 of them I know are still practicing in the field for sure. And a couple of them, I think it wasn't, one of them I know went on and is doing like managerial positions, but still in that helping profession. So it is often more women, but it's not to say that there isn't men that are doing it. And men are a high demand. I know just even in, the field that I'm in right now, in our office, we have 1 male and 4 or 5 of us as females that are working. And there are people who generally or genuinely would feel better or request seeing a male. So there is so much opportunity in the field for men. Not to say that there isn't for women, right? Obviously we can still, but yeah, I would love to see that grow.
Yeah, me too. And I just wanted to make sure that we highlight that, it's not a field that's just for women or just for men. We want everyone to be involved in that so that people have an opportunity to choose who they work with as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's what it is, right? Is that they don't even get that opportunity to choose because it's not available. So yeah, to have that be an opportunity for people would be awesome.
Yeah. Okay, well, I want to thank you for sharing your passion for helping with us. It's very obvious from the career journey that you shared that you're in a job or a career that you love to do. I appreciate how you shared with us today that your career journey has evolved over time. It wasn't a straight path you embarked on out of high school, but it always involved helping others. Like you never wavered from that. I also appreciated how you shared that your education was something that you did over time and you were able to do locally, so it's not always that, we have to graduate high school, go into the career that we want, post-secondary, get that job, move away, so you shared something that is probably a career path that many people are going to have to choose, and you're very passionate about that. I also appreciated that you shared that there's a vast opportunities available for those considering social work, because I think some people have a narrow perspective that if you get a Bachelor of Social Work, it means you're going to go into Child and Family Services and take away children.
Yeah.
And that's all they see, and they don't see that, with a Bachelor of Social Work, the world is your oyster, really. You can do many, many different things with that, and you can continue to educate yourself and evolve your career over time, change your career over time, so that you're not doing the same thing for 30 years necessarily. You're doing many things, but all from that focus of helping others. So.
Yeah. If you're somebody who can't, doesn't think that you fit in the box of like, I'm going to do this for the next 30 years, social work is amazing because it's like, I'm going to do social work, but I'm going to do it here and I'm going to do it there and I'm going to do it here and I'm going to have the opportunity. So yeah, so I agree, Lisa, it provides and opens up so many doors for people. And yeah, the flexibility in that is amazing. Like you're still doing what you love to do, but at a different capacity.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Thanks.
Yeah.
It was amazing to hear.